So let's talk about remote timers. When I had my first digital camera, I was using this remote timer, which is this 2.5mm jack, and it was working fine, but it has an issue. So if I would say start an exposure with the button and lock it, it doesn't show me the time, how long the camera is running. Okay, so I would have to take my phone out and start the stopwatch and time it, and then press the stop. Of course, I could just set up this timer to run, let's say, 2-minute exposure and start it from that. But the next issue is when the timer is running, when it started, I cannot turn on the light on this timer. So it doesn't fit my needs. Also, it uses this CR2032 batteries, where I have a lot of them because the battery indicator is really bad and it shows battery empty mostly all of the time. So every time I go shooting, I take the old battery out, I take a new one and use that. And of course, I forget to take it out after shooting, so it will be empty again the next time. So don't need it. So I bought another timer, which is using AA batteries or AAA batteries. And this one's a bit better because even so, if I start an exposure with the button, it shows me how long it is running. And it also has a nice red light, so it tells me this is running. It also beeps, which sometimes helps. But the same problem, if I want to see in the dark how long my exposure is running, if I press the button to turn on the light, nothing happens. I have to stop it. Then I can turn on the light, which is really dim. And it's also on the lock button, so it sometimes doesn't work. It's just not a very good timer. So I thought maybe I could buy one of those smart timers where you have an app on your phone and you set it and everything. But most of those, they need to have a reliable Wi-Fi or Bluetooth connection to the phone, so you cannot walk away. So you need to put your phone beside your camera. And that's not what I wanted, because sometimes when I'm out shooting, I want to use my phone while I'm shooting. Of course, there are timers that have this little dongle that sits on top of the camera that save the settings on the dongle and then run from there. But then without taking my phone out, I cannot check if the timer is running or not. And the second problem is with newer Sony cameras, if you have them in bulb mode and you start an exposure, the display just turns black into this. So you don't know how long your timer is running. So even with a smart timer, without taking your phone out, you have no chance on checking what the state of the exposure is, how long it's been running, and so forth. So you would have to stop the exposure, press play, and then read how long this has been running, which is of course not really convenient. So I decided to build my own timer. This is based on an M5 stack, which is a small IoT development board which can run Arduino code or MicroPython. It's in this little case, has nice little Lego attachments. I have this small breadboard which has this 3.5mm jack where I can plug a universal cable in. This can now close. And then I have this button on the side which turns it on, and it starts in the last mode which it was running before. I can then take this adapter cable, which is a standard headphone cable, and use this cable which I built from the cable of this remote which I bought for the Sony camera. Can plug this side here in and plug the other one into the Sony. Okay. And this will then run the exposure for me, and it will also show how long it has been running and how many exposures are left. I can turn the display off to save battery. It has an indicator on the side to show that it is still running, which will turn blue in between the exposures, so I know exactly when it takes the next exposure. And it will also turn green when the exposures are finished. So let me do that. And what's also nice, because of batteries, it is USB chargeable. So I just take a normal cheap battery bank, and even if it's empty, I can plug that in, start the power bank, the battery indicator will turn white and it will be charging. The only downside on this is if I want to remove the power bank, or if the power bank turns off in midst of an exposure, it will turn off or it will restart itself. But for this, you can also take this charging cradle. You need to open it, and you can attach this magnetically, and you can still use it while charging, and you can remove it from the charger and add to the charger however you like. So that's quite good. Everything is press fit. There are no screws to build this case. The case is 3D printed in PLA. For keeping it inside the case, I've turned off elephant foot compensation, so it keeps a nice little lip, so the case really sits in there and will not come out. There are different attachments to Timy. That's how it's called. So this is a hot shoe adapter. You can mount Timy on a hot shoe and can leave it running if you're doing time lapse on a rotating base, for instance. It will stay there. There is a 45-degree angle case which mounts on my Olympus. So it's like this. And there is a tripod mount, which goes on the tripod. And it stays there. So currently it's running in time-lapse mode. If I want to switch mode, I will press the reset button, press app, and I have written different apps, so I will now run bulb mode, which basically is a timer which counts upwards. So if I plug the camera and press start, it will show me for how long the timer has been running. The display dims a bit, and to see if it's running, it shows this little Knight Rider light. I can turn the display off while it's running to save even more battery. I can still see it's still running just by looking at it. I can turn the display back on, press stop. Stop is basically a pause. You can then reset and start again. And as said, for charging, it uses USB-C, which is good, so I can just use any cheap power bank. And it will now charge. I'm quite addicted to USB charging, so I have this big raw power 10,000 milliamps power bank, which then plugs into a USB hub. And you have a lot of possibilities. Of course, I can now just charge my timy. In addition to that, I could just plug in another USB-C cable. Run that into my Sony, so this will charge now as well. If I have another battery which is empty, which I want to use, I will just plug in another USB charger. The power bank will now charge my battery. And if I have even another maybe empty power bank, or my phone is empty, I will plug that in. I can turn it on. And this one wirelessly charges my phone. So I have everything running from one power bank, basically. And that's quite nice. Why did I choose a 3.5mm cable? It's because they are super cheap to buy. You can have them in various lengths. You could even have a very short one if you prefer that. I've created another adapter which plugs into my Olympus camera. And now I can use timy with my Olympus. The Olympus has the advantage it shows the time on the display, so it's not a big issue of that. I could use a splitter to run two cameras at the same time. And when I will have another camera which needs yet another adapter, then I will just build one. All right, that's timy. Thanks for watching.